choose to.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. President and members of the Board of Supervisors. Excuse me, at this point in time, we presented that as a approval for interim agreement with you all to provide the service for the district, and the board attorney announced the amount of which we would require to provide that service, and we're just asking for your permission to go forward.
What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Discussion, Mr. Fisher.
I don't know if this question is for Mr. Clark or not, just I'll ask it out. During the discussion of the redistricting, Mr. Johnson had commented that if there were any split districts or any split voting precincts, that the board would act in order to alleviate that problem and redraw lines so that we could handle that. Do you have any knowledge of that going on, or are we going to continue to vote with split precincts?
Well, right now we have two, but you were at the meeting when we discussed the split precincts. And we're going to get back information from Mr. Johnson that would clearly define the precincts and a map that would show all of the precincts involved, including those two splits. Unless there is more information that's submitted at this point in time, I can't speak for Mr. Johnson at this particular moment in time, but I suspect that the information that he gave us at our last meeting, which you attended, would be forthcoming.
So it's your recommendation that despite the fact that the information he gives us may be contrary to what's currently on the map, that we should move forward to that?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I can't speak for Mr. Johnson. And he will be able to, at our very next meeting, at the meeting that you attended, that he pointed out the Spring Ridge and those precincts in that Clinton and Raymond area, that was pretty much going to be the only two splits that will be recommended to the board as for redistricting. And as it calls for our plan that the Department of Justice accepted, which we submitted.
Well, I guess my question is, since it's not clearly defined right now, how is a person living in say Raymond 2, which is one precinct, and also in Spring Ridge, how is the assignment for where they're going to vote going to be made?
Well, what we're going to do with that is we're going to look at that assignment and look at the precinct that we're going to be redistricting, and we're going to send out the cards to allow that person, to that person his or her new voting area and voting points or voting location. And it's going to be done, and it has done in the past when redistricting and splits came up in the past, the same nature.
Let me ask it another way. You got 4 people. Let's just say they live on streets A, B, C, and D, and they're in Spring Ridge. Who's going to decide which precinct they go vote to in Street A, Street B, Street C, and Street D? Who makes that final decision when you mail that card?
The final decision is going to be made based on the line that's drawn, and which is the dividing line from that particular district. As you well know, the dividing line from bumper to bumper, to board to board, backs up against one precinct against the other, and that's how the decision will be made. Now, what we're to do is to send the notification cards out to those precincts and those districts that will be affected.
How do you know whether to send them to Edwards to vote, Raymond to vote, Bolton to vote, Learning? I mean, how do you know where to send them? Because otherwise, they wouldn't be split precincts if they were already assigned a precinct.
That's correct. As I stated earlier, you were there when that discussion took place. Now, based on the information that Mr. Johnson brings us back, and we decided we either stay at the same precinct or create another one in the Spring Ridge area, or go back to the one that had gone in previous elections. So I will get more information, and I'll get back to you personally when we see the final results of that map.
I guess the issue then is the board has to make the decision ultimately of who votes where and what precinct. And if I understand what you're telling me here, you're going to have to still gather information and bring back to the board
I don't, we're working on a plan that Mr. Johnson presented to you at our meeting on the 14th, I believe. You were there.
But what, I know I was there, but what I had the same question then, and now we're 2 weeks later and we still don't have an answer. A week later, and we still don't have an answer. How do we know where somebody living in Raymond 2 is going to vote? Where do they get up and go that day? How do they know that? And
We're
who's gonna make the
going
determination?
to send them what we call a notification card asking
I understand the process.
Okay.
Okay? What I want to know is who decides where that person goes? Who decides when that card is mailed out that the information written on there is putting them in the correct voting precinct?
The commissioner that is assigned to that district, based on the information that the redistricting plan calls for.
Doesn't the board have to vote on that ultimately?
I thought the board has already turned in their submission to the Justice Department, and this is what we're working on.
Ms. Rhodes, can you help me out here?
Yes, sir, Mr. Supervisor. Connie Cochran has been very disturbed about, in her delineation of where the lines are. And she ultimately would be the person who, well, I would say would be, she is the person who has gone through the area. Not only has she gone through the area with her vehicle, but she's gone through the map and she's spoken with the person in those particular areas, and it poses a problem. In our last meeting, we were asked to consider an amendment to the Board of Supervisors to rectify what she perceives as a problem, what we perceive as a problem. We've listened attentively to what she has said. We have checked the maps with her, and as Chairman Clark knows that we have fully discussed it. And it was a decision at one time. I remember Supervisor Calhoun gave a very astute presentation in asking some questions. And answering those questions, it is our decision, if it's at all possible, that the board would consider a recommendation from us to amend that, and of course to send to justice. And we do have a window of time going forward, which this could be consummated. Does that answer your question?
Yes, as I understand it, you think there's a problem here with these lines as far as being able to
Very
notify people?
definitely. I wish it were possible that someone, if the president would authorize someone to call Connie to come and more definitively. But yes, to answer your question, yes. And we support that, but we know that ultimately the Board of Supervisors has the final decision. And we respect that. We have no choice. But we want you to be aware of the status of those splits and how they will impact those voters.
Is it your opinion that if the motion to continue to move forward today with the contract and the process continues, will the board, will this matter come back to the board for a decision to be made on the specifics of these precincts? And then will that have to be sent to justice?
In our discussion, when we did an extensive coming to the table and a meeting of the minds of what should be done, the final analysis coming from the commissioner who has worked in that area for more than 20 years recommended to us to agree to recommend to the board that an amendment, that a letter to the Board of Supervisors with an amendment to the redistricting be sent to justice. And we have, I'm being redundant, we have a window of time, if indeed this is approved, that would eliminate the fallacy. And there is a fallacy because it impacts the voters. And they are our clients.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. President, my concern remains that we're going to disenfranchise some of the voters in Raymond 2 and Spring Ridge under the circumstances that we're working under right now in the efforts to hold the election under the new lines in November.
Mr. Fisher, with all due respect, I don't.
Go ahead, Mr. Clark, and then go to Ms. Calhoun.
Okay, I don't think so. And based on the addendum or an amendment to the approval of the Justice Department that has already approved the plan that was submitted, I don't think that with proper notification to those people in those districts that are being affected by the change, I don't think that they will disenfranchise any voters. That's my personal opinion.
Okay. Mrs. Calhoun.
It has been stated earlier in something I wanted to clear up, and that is Mr. Johnson does not have the responsibility for redistricting or redrawing the lines. The Board of Supervisors has that responsibility, and not Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson only served as the facilitator in the entire process.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right.
Any additional questions as it relates to this particular issue?
Mr. President.
Mr. Stokes.
Thank you. I want to first apologize for being tired. Two concerns. Could we get the precincts? And I know he's looking like, I don't even know what precincts in District 5. Could we get the precincts, please? I don't know if the other supervisors know all the precincts or not. Could I get a list of all the precincts for each supervisory district? The first thing. The second thing, I have on my desk about the request for proposals. Has he spoken to that issue yet, Mr. President?
No.
He has not. Could I have it?
Regarding.
Voting machine.
No, we're not at the voting machines yet. Okay. No, but this is the redistricting. Okay. All those in favor of? Aye.
Did we have a second on the vote?
Yes. Ms. Calhoun made the motion. Mr. Anderson, second. Okay. All those in favor of? Aye. Opposed to?
No.
Motion passes.
Not voting, Mr. President.
Okay. One not voting, one no. Motion passes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. We will continue to move through the agenda. We'll go to the approval of minutes.